There are no external causes, only reflected states of consciousness. Stop for a moment, not to think, just to realize that you are here, within this moment that will never be repeated, looking outwards through a pair of eyes you never chose to open. There's something strange about this. If you look closely, you call everything that appears before you the world. You call the sequence of images, sounds, encounters, losses, and mournings that repeat themselves with slight variations, life. But where exactly is this world taking place? Not out there. He's never been outside. Everything you've ever seen, touched, feared, or loved happened here, inside, in the only place where experience truly occurs. The awareness that you are no color has ever existed outside of an eye that recognizes it as color. No sound has ever existed outside of an ear, or something equivalent to an ear, capable of translating vibration into meaning. The world, as you know it, has never been there. It has always been here, being assembled moment by moment, within the only space that never ceases to be present. And if that's true, if nothing had ever happened outside of you, then maybe the question we've been asking our whole lives has been reversed from the start. Isn't it, what's happening to me? What within me is causing this? Keep that question in mind for a moment. Don't answer her yet. Just let it float, like a small stone thrown into a still lake, waiting to see how far the waves reach. Notice how, from a very young age, we learn to look outward for explanations. The crying child points to the broken toy, to the sibling who pushed them, to the rule that seemed unfair. No one teaches the child to ask what, within themselves, gave rise to that experience of injustice. And so we all grow up pointing outward, as if the index finger were the only organ available to understand life. Never the palm of the hand turned inward. Never the silence of simply feeling what is already present before any explanation. There is a feeling that almost every human being has experienced, even without knowing how to name it. It's that subtle distance between you and what you're experiencing, as if observing your own existence from a slightly distant place, a thin pane of glass between you and the present moment. Have you ever felt this in a room full of people, smiling, responding, present in form, but absent in some other dimension of yourself, as if a part of you had been left behind in another room? Have you ever felt this, looking at an ordinary morning and asking, without words, if that was all there was? Have you ever felt this lying in the dark, reviewing an entire day of events, trying to understand why things repeat themselves, the same types of conflict, the same disappointments in different clothes, the same endings disguised as new beginnings? There's also that almost imperceptible moment when you find yourself observing your own life as if watching a movie you've seen before. You know what comes next. You know what the reply will be, what the awkward silence will be, what the feeling of emptiness will be that follows the euphoria. And even knowing this, he continues watching, as if there were no other chair to sit in. And amidst all of this, a question remains unanswered. Is this happening to me, or is it coming from me? The mind, trained by a lifetime of visible cause and effect, always points outward. It was the other person. It was the circumstance. It was the weather, the money, childhood, bad luck. And there is, in fact, a comforting logic to this. If the cause is out there, then the solution would also be out there, and you would only need to wait, adjust, negotiate with the world until it yielded. But you've already tried that. Everyone has tried it. They changed cities, jobs, relationships, routines. And the pattern, somehow, always finds a new face to repeat itself, like a melody that insists on returning. Even when we change all the instruments in the orchestra, perhaps the problem was never about finding the right cause out there. Perhaps the problem was looking outside when the origin has always been silent, constant, uninterrupted, right here. There's a specific kind of weariness that stems from this, not physical weariness, but the weariness of someone who has tried everything out there and still feels the same familiar emptiness waiting around the next corner. It's the weariness of someone who has changed scenery so many times that they no longer know if they're running away from somewhere or just carrying, suitcase after suitcase, the same inner weight into each new address. And it is precisely in this weariness, when the external search finally runs out, that something begins to open up to a different question, not where to find the solution, but who is looking for it. There's a difference between looking and perceiving. Looking is what the eyes do automatically, without asking permission from the mind. Perceiving is something else entirely. It's the instant when consciousness recognizes that it is participating in what it sees, and not merely witnessing from the outside. Imagine a dark room. The light that enters through a crack doesn't create the room. The room already existed, but without the light, no one would know what it's like. Light reveals form. It does not invent it. Now, flip that image. What if consciousness were not the light that reveals a world already made, but the very light that, upon touching the darkness, decides the form it will take? This is a question the rational mind resists asking, because it shifts the center of everything. If consciousness merely reveals what already exists, then you are a spectator. But if consciousness participates in the creation of what it experiences, then you have never been a spectator. You were always the point of origin, disguised as a distant observer. Notice how this silently changes everything. The same rainy day can be felt as melancholy by one consciousness and as comfort by another. The rain doesn't change. What changes is the state in which it is found. If the weather is what colors the experience of rain, then the weather, not the rain, is the real cause of what you feel. The same silence that, one night, seems like abandonment can, on another, seem like rest. The same four walls that imprison one state of consciousness liberate another. Nothing in the environment needed to change. Only the observer has changed, and in changing, everything that was observed changed. Go deeper. The same question that applies to rain applies to everything. To work, to relationships, to the body, to the future. It is not the event that determines the experience. It is consciousness that encounters the event. Like a musician lending their own tone to any score handed to them. This is not a theory to be understood. It's a perception to be felt slowly, like someone who begins to see depth in an image that previously seemed flat, and suddenly can never see it as flat again. There is an old word for this, almost forgotten in our hurried use of language. Presence, not physical presence, not simply being in a place, but the presence of someone who inhabits the moment without absenting themselves from it through memory or anticipation. Most human suffering occurs in two territories that do not exist: the past, which is no more, and the future, which is not yet. And consciousness, when it finally rests here, in the only territory that truly exists, finds something that no circumstance had been able to offer, not because the present is always comfortable, but because it is the only place where life, in fact, happens. There is a silent paradox at the heart of all this. Consciousness cannot see itself as an object because it is the very act of seeing. You can observe your thoughts, you can observe your emotions, your body, your history. You can even observe the voice that judges all of this, that compares, that fears, that hopes. But what observes all of this? That which never appears as an object, because it is the very space where objects appear. That is you, not the character who thinks and feels, the silent space that witnesses thought and feeling without ever being touched by them. What if this silent presence is not just a witness, but the source? Imagine consciousness not as a blank canvas waiting for the world to project images onto it, but as a projector that, at every instant, casts its own light upon the darkness and calls that reality. The screen doesn't choose the movie, but the projector. Yes, for most of our lives, we confuse the screen with the projector. We think we are what receives the world, passive, at the mercy of what is displayed, and we live like someone watching their own film without knowing that they hold the reel in their own hands, without knowing that each scene, each cut, each change of scenery was first born inside the very device that projects it. There's something almost dizzying about acknowledging that. Because if consciousness is the source of experience, then every scene of life, every relationship, every absence, every repetition is not an accident of fate. It's a reflex, an image reflected by a mirror that doesn't lie, even when the mind insists on doubting it. Think about the word reflection carefully. A mirror never creates something new. It only reflects, with absolute precision, what has been placed before it. It does not judge, interpret, or distort out of malice. Just reflect. There is no such thing as a resentful mirror, nor a generous mirror. There is only a true mirror. What if the world worked like this, not as a place that happens to you, but as an infinite surface, reflecting back, moment after moment, the states that your consciousness holds as true about itself? Think about how many times you've tried to change the reflection by directly manipulating it, arguing with the image in the mirror, trying to arrange every detail on the outside, like someone adjusting the glass instead of adjusting the face looking into it. And think about how, each time, the reflection simply reverted to what was being held up on the inside. This means that the question was never what to do to change reality. The question has always been, what state of consciousness am I offering to the mirror right now? This is not a question to be answered with the mind. It's a question to feel with your whole body, in the silence between two thoughts, where no word has yet arrived to name what you are. Some people fear this idea because it removes the comfort of blaming external factors. But within that same recognition, there is a quiet freedom. If consciousness is the only cause, then no circumstance ever had ultimate power over you. Power has always been non-negotiable, incorruptible, within what you are inside, before any event manifests itself outwardly. And perhaps that's exactly what's so frightening and at the same time so liberating, discovering that you were never a hostage of the world, that you were always, without knowing it, the silent author of everything you swore you were only witnessing. Think about how many times life has seemed to repeat the same plot with different actors, the same kind of abandonment, wearing different faces, the same kind of betrayal, in contexts that swore to be new, the same kind of exhaustion, disguised as a different job, a different city, a different promise. For a long time, this seems like coincidence, or destiny, or accumulated bad luck. But there is another possible interpretation, quieter and more honest. Perhaps the plot repeats itself because the screenwriter, deep down, hasn't changed. Perhaps the mirror continues to reflect the same image because the face before it, at the deepest level of identity, hasn't yet recognized itself in any other way. This is not an accusation. There is no guilt in this, only a silent invitation to observe. Because the moment consciousness recognizes its own role in creating experience, the narrative can no longer continue in exactly the same way. Something inevitably begins to move. Perhaps, at this moment, something within you has already begun to quiet down, not because you have understood everything intellectually, but because something within you has recognized it as familiar, as if you always knew it, at a level deeper than thought can reach. Feel for a moment the weight that dissolves when you stop looking for the cause outside yourself. It's not laziness. It's not giving up. It's the rest of someone who finally stops knocking on the wrong door after years of trying, without realizing that the key all along was in their own pocket. You don't need to fix the world to feel at peace. You don't need people to change, circumstances to align, or time to finally cooperate, because peace has never depended on that. The experience of peace is, in itself, a state of consciousness, and states of consciousness can be recognized, felt, inhabited, long before any external proof appears to justify them. This changes how you go through the day. It changes how you receive difficult news, an absence, an unexpected silence from someone you loved who was nearby. Just because these things stop hurting doesn't mean the pain remains, honest and ever-present. But why do you stop believing that they have the power to decide who you are? You're the one who's always been watching, the one who was always there, before any identity was formed, before any story was told, before the first name they gave you, before the first memory you hold. There was already a silent presence, witnessing the arrival of everything, and it is this observer, silent, constant, indifferent to the noise of circumstances, who effortlessly carries the true cause of everything you call life. Repeat this, not as a mantra, but as a gentle reminder. Whenever the world seems too big and you too small in the face of it, there are no external causes, only reflected states of consciousness, and the state can always be recognized again, here, now, without asking permission from anything outside. Let this phrase settle within you, like a stone slowly sinking to the bottom of a lake, without haste, without resistance, simply finding, little by little, the place where it was always destined to be. Perhaps tomorrow, the world will still present the same difficult questions. Perhaps a pending conversation will remain pending. An expected result will not yet arrive. Uncertainty will continue to hang over an important decision. None of this disappears simply because a new perspective has opened up. But there is a subtle difference, almost imperceptible at first, between facing these moments from the anxiety of someone who feels at the mercy of the world and facing them from the silent recognition of someone who knows deep down that no circumstance ever had the ultimate power to decide who one is. This difference, small at first, is capable of reorganizing an entire life, not overnight, but in the same way that the tide reorganizes a beach, slowly, repetition after repetition, until the landscape, one day, is no longer the same. Maybe you'll close your eyes after that. Perhaps you'll just keep staring at the screen in silence, feeling that something has shifted inside you, even without being able to name exactly what it is. There's nothing to do now, no next step, no conclusion to be reached, no to-do list to carry with you after this video ends. Just this, consciousness, observing itself for a moment, without any hurry to become something else. The world will continue spinning out there, with its noises, its urgencies, its mornings that repeat themselves without asking permission. But for a moment, you remembered where it all really begins, and that memory, however brief, however silent, is no longer erased in the same way that any other piece of information is erased. It settles somewhere deeper than memory, in a place that recognizes truth, not through reasoning, but through the simple repose it brings with it. Not out there, here. It's always been here.